Welcome to Training Talk. I'm Alan.
I'm Rosie.
We're hardcore divers, and we wanted to talk today about how do you identify a good dive shop that is worth your money and time, and then secondly, how do you recognize a good instructor? How do you know if you have a good one? So what are some of the things that you've seen in really good dive shops, perhaps the top dive shops that we've dealt with?
I think some of the things that I think make a good dive shop are organization, where you walk in, they greet you, they find out like what level of diver you are, kind of what your interests are so that they can kind of cater to your needs.
Right, because different dive shops do have a different little bent to them. So
Right.
Some are more techy, some are more travel oriented, some are more public safety diver, light commercial diver oriented. There is a little bit of difference in many of the dive shops.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that a good dive shop, they have like a schedule of like, they say, okay, open water, this is the schedule for open water. And they have every class lined out ahead of time. And so that they have the prices there, they have, and so everything is very organized and very put together.
And I think the converse is also true. So if you walk into a dive shop, if there's chaos, if there's people running around, one big one is if it's hard for them to keep instructors around.
Oh, true.
If they can't keep instructors around and they're flipping instructors, that should be a red flag.
Right.
That, and if there's chaos. If there's chaos in the owner's life, there's probably chaos in the shop.
Right.
And that shows up when it comes to their rental gear.
Yes,
What gear they're sending people out with. It is the gear that they're sending people out with. Does it function properly?
Right.
Or do you have regulators that free flow? Do you have dry suits that leak? We dive in Alaska, so dry suits are our preferred thermal protection. That's really important for us. But yet that dry suit diving takes a lot to manage. It's more involved than say a wetsuit would be. So those are some things that I would look for to say, maybe this isn't the shop I want to dive with. Maybe I should look for another one.
And another thing would be, how knowledgeable are they? If I ask them, like, hey, can you tell me about the flashlights you have? And then they can tell you.
Well, not only can you tell me about, but have you used them?
Yes.
So if the people that work at the dive shop never get in the water with you or aren't. So there are divers that dive in places like Hawaii. They're phenomenal divers.
Right.
But that's the water they know and dive in. Maybe they dive in Florida or the Caribbean.
Right.
And they dive in those waters and they're super good at it. That will not make them a good cold water diver.
Right.
That's a whole different experience. So if the people that run the shop, if the people that manage the shop day to day don't dive and don't dive in those conditions, they can't make good recommendations.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So experience in the conditions that you're diving in matter, and the type of diving that you want to do matter. Now, if dive shops have a different bent, that's okay.
Right.
Everybody does. Everybody has a different interest, and you can be super good and dialed at what you do. But if you have a shop in a location, you never dive in that location. Right. In my view, that's a problem.
Right.
The big reason why you want to make sure that you're choosing a good dive shop and a good instructor is because your life is in their hands. Their issues become your issues really fast. So that's why it's important to pick the right shops. Another thing I found with shops is that they can learn who you are as a diver individually.
Yes.
So I still have my open water instructor that'll call me and say, Alan, you won't like that regulator. I know how you breathe. And that was, 10, 11 years ago?
Yeah.
And yet she still will give me advice based on what she knows about me. Yeah. Does that mean I haven't grown as a diver? Well, I think I have grown as a diver quite a bit. But there are some things that she just knows about me having spent that much time in the water with me, open water and advanced open water.
Yeah, very true.
I think knowing divers personally, being personally interested in their training and where they want to take their training, I think that's important.
I think another thing that's important is that if I want to do tech diving, so I walk into your shop and, hey, I'm interested in tech diving. Well, you don't do tech diving.
That's right.
So it's good that a dive shop would be able to give me references. And
referrals,
yeah. So that, they can refer me to somebody that does do a lot of tech diving and know about them. So they can say, hey, I know this shop, I don't have personal experience, but I've heard they were really good. I know whoever, and they can give you that referral too. And so that's always a good sign of a good shop too, is that they're willing to share
They know where the resources are and they're willing to share that with you. If there's a lot of animosity that a particular shop has with some of the other dive community where you live, that can be a red flag, and you may want to investigate that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Another thing I think a good dive shop has to have is a service department.
Yes.
So if they are going to sell you gear, they should be able to service that gear and keep it in good shape.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of the dive shop, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And most pieces of dive gear, the manufacturer has a service schedule for. And so you have to be aware of that, and you have to make sure that you get your gear serviced. Remember, this is life safety equipment. Human beings are not meant to be living in the water for an hour at a time or however long you dive. And so this equipment needs to be maintained not after it has a problem or after it has a failure, but before it does, and that's why the manufacturers set this schedule the way they do.
Talking about that same line, is it if they have a rental gear, if they can't service that equipment, is their rental gear being taken care of? That's kind of a question you have to ask yourself. If they can't service it, how's that rental gear? Exactly. So
that's a good point. I think those are some interesting points about good dive shops. Notice we never said anything about the actual venue, about the building, about the ambiance, as it were. I think some of the best shops we've been in have been one of them was a Connex on a beach.
Yeah.
And they had things that you might need to make a dive or to replace a piece of gear that might have been damaged on a dive, but they didn't have a lot of stuff.
No, they didn't.
But what made that shop was the people.
Yes.
The people in that shop.
Yeah.
The owner was knowledgeable. She was a diver. She dove in those conditions. She advised us on those conditions and what to expect. And she also hired good people that she had there for a long, long time. And I thought they were a fantastic dive shop.
They were, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's other dive shops like Jack's Diving Locker. It's amazing, it's beautiful, amazing people there.
Yep,
they have
but
it's big for show off.
Could be small.
Exactly. So you just never know on the outlook of the dive shop.
Yeah.
Don't judge it on the look, because the people make it up. The people are the ones that your dive instructor, your dive guides, that is what's going to make or break the dive shop. And so
I think so. So that being the case, let's kind of switch gears from the people or the dive shop itself and the people that kind of make the dive shop happen. But the most important person is the instructor.
Right.
In your mind, based on your experience, what have you identified in the instructors that you thought were really good?
Well, I think my first instructor that taught me how to dive, absolutely phenomenal. Alan and Sonia Alloway down in Wind and Water. They were the best because
down in Ketchikan.
Down in Ketchikan, we went to go dive and everything was, past all the cool stuff, got into open water, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't see. I was like, nope, not doing it. Jumped out of the water, went back up. And everybody else kind of went on with their dive. Well, Alan had come with me and he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, you're going to be this fabulous diver. And I'm like, nope, not happening. And so he was able to talk to me. We went diving. He said, I'll tell you what, let's go, me and you just go diving and let's see what's going on. He took me out diving, just me and him, and he watched my breathing. So he knew exactly what was causing me to panic. He knew how to calm down the panic. And we did all of our dives, just me and him. You know, I'd get comfortable and then he'd have me do a skill. So I'd have to do all my skills, but he got me comfortable first. And then, you know, and he was always there. And every weekend after me and you dove, every weekend, once we got certified, every weekend we'd go back and Alan would be like, hey, what did you learn? How did you dive? How was your, you know, what did you see? And he was so excited about it and involved, and he stayed involved. And I think that really helped me become a long-term
even to
diver.
this day, he's involved. And they want to know how things are going.
Yes.
I think you're right. So, like we talked about people that might be running a dive shop, it's the same with instructors. The very first thing they have to do is they have to be interested in you as an individual and what you want to do. It's not about them. Another example that we had recently was that gentleman in St. Martin. I'm telling you what, this instructor knew his stuff. And he was able to identify things before they became problems, correct them, and get you through. Like you've never had a problem clearing your ears.
I've never had a problem clearing my ears, and we went out there and I couldn't clear my ears, and I was just like, I'm just done. Take my money, I don't care, I'm not going. And he said, he goes, you know, he told me exactly when I jump in the water what I would see, what I was to do. He goes, go to 5 feet, clear your ears. He goes, you'll be fine. And then he goes, just, you know, because he said, you're an experienced diver, you know how to do this, so let's do it. And I was just like, I went in the water, and then I started hyperventilating because I could think it was my ears weren't clear and I can't go down, and you know, all this kind of stuff was just causing so much anxiety. And he looked right at me, and he made me look at him. He's like, breathe. And once he was able to get me to calm down and breathe, my ears cleared, and I had the best dive ever. Got to dive with the sharks. It was amazing. But if it wasn't for him making me calm, calm and focus on my breathing, and he knew that was going to work. That was incredible to me.
And so I think I can summarize that a little bit. So a good dive instructor will have you focus on the basics. He didn't have you do anything elaborate. It was stop, breathe, and then if you had to, think and act. Which you didn't have to do those bottom two because the problem took care of themselves. But you had to stop and you had to breathe. And then after that, your problems kind of went away. So the instructor went back to basics. He was very calm, and I really liked the way his demeanor was. He was very soft-spoken, very calm, but he was very authoritative at the same time, and he was a super dive guy.
And he never assumed that because I'm an experienced diver, you know what I mean? Like he realized that I was panicking for whatever reason. Okay, you need to get back to the basics and breathe.
You know, 2,000 dives under ice is not the same as 2,000 dives in the Caribbean.
Right.
So we're used to diving in a dry suit, in ice, maybe mostly in side mount. And now we're single tanking it off a boat, which we never got off a boat, in the Caribbean, where we feel like we don't have any of our gear. Even an experienced diver, experienced as we are in cold water, we're relatively novice, actually, in warm water. And he was able to identify that you were both experienced, but also not in that way.
And he never made me feel belittled or anything like that. I mean, he just one-on-one, and it was like, you're right. You know, and then I was able to get under control and enjoy the rest of my dive. It was great. And even when we got to the boat, and, you know, back up to the boat, he never said a word.
And you have to take the ego out of whatever you're doing. Ego doesn't work with diving very well. So I have little patience for ego in diving. Those are some important points and some good things about a good instructor. So another, and probably one of the very most important things, and this applies to dive shops as well as instructors, and that is they have to teach to standards. Now there are numerous dive organizations They all have standards. Those standards differ slightly, but they all get you to the same place safely. And each dive instructor has to teach to their particular organization's standards. I'm a PADI instructor. I'm a master scuba diver trainer with PADI. I teach to PADI standards.
Yep.
If you're an SSI instructor, teach to SSI's standards. And it makes sure that you're covering the material that will make your diver a safe diver. So in my mind, you don't have a good instructor or a good shop if they're encouraging you to violate standards,
right,
or if they're willing to violate standards,
yes,
just for a few dollars.
right.
And that kind of leads me back to instructors that want to push someone through a certification,
Yes.
in the minimum number of hours. And I understand why the dive industry wants to have what I call cattle car diving, which is certifying a diver in 2 to 3 days. They're just pushing them through the information. They're saying, okay, you cleared your mask once, you're good to go. That skill's checked off.
Right.
That does not make for a diver that masters those skills in my opinion. And skill mastery is what should be required for certification.
Yeah.
If you got certified and your instructor only had you clear your mask one time, or you only had to clear your mask once, that might be a red flag. That could be an indicator. Now, the dive instructor may say, oh, I see that person's mask has been leaking, they've been clearing it,
Right,
That person probably knows how to clear his mask because he's done it 8 times in the last 4 nights, you know.
Right.
But if they're trying to rush students through without them obtaining mastery, that is a serious red flag.
And you know, another thing about a good instructor is Mitch Osborne was training us, and he taught me that to look at monsters. And he told us, we went out to dive with him. I think it was the first time that I dove with him. And he asked me, he said, you know, what's your monster? I'm like, I don't know, what are you talking about? And he explained to me what it was. And mine was clearing my mask. I hated clearing my mask. And he said, Rosie, I want you to go out there and I want you to clear your mask. And I want you to clear it over and over until you're comfortable. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, if Mitch told me that, and now I can clear my mask no matter what, my mask gets flooded
It's
for whatever
just
reason.
a matter of normal. It's
Yeah.
like breathing off your regulator,
It
right?
is. It is. And
Yeah.
so that to me,
So he
that's a
turned
really
something
good
that was a
instructor.
difficult skill into something that's second nature.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember Sonia and Alan told me that too in the beginning, to practice what you don't like to do.
Yeah.
And then when Mitch reinforced it, it was so good because they didn't talk or anything. They had no
Right.
idea. But that's my opinion of a good instructor is that they make you look at where you need the help. Okay, now let's fix it.
That's
You
right.
know?
Some skills are going to be easy for some people,
Yep.
and other skills are going to be more difficult. Which ones do you really need to practice with? The ones that
All
are
of
most
them.
difficult,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well, all of them, but the one
Yeah.
that's most
Yeah,
difficult,
yeah.
that's where you need the most
Very
work.
true, yeah.
But a good instructor will ensure that you master the material.
Yeah.
He'll also ensure that if you have any questions about your online or book learning, that those questions are answered
Right.
be-
Yes.
before you hit the water and do that particular aspect of your certification. We do a lot of specialty certifications in the public safety realm, dry suit, full face mask, PSD, advanced PSD we have coming up. We also have to make sure that the students understand the subject matter, especially in the courses we're teaching, because people are hanging their lives on that information,
Right, yeah.
and it's important that it be done right.
Right.
Not cutting corners is important. There's been some recent issues in the scuba industry with people getting hurt because people are like, yeah, you don't need that
Right.
inflator hose for your dry suit, or yeah, you don't really need to know about that. Let's just go and get this done.
Or assuming that
Yeah,
you've already
or
been taught.
assuming,
Yeah.
And I consider that both an instructor problem and a diver problem.
Yeah.
If a diver has a problem, they need to ask a question.
Right.
And sometimes it's it can be difficult for some instructors to identify when a student isn't comfortable with something, but
Well,
they should.
sometimes
They should have
it's-
that global awareness, right?
And sometimes it's hard for the student to say, I got a problem, because they don't know if it's a problem. You know, they don't know if that's normal or not.
That's
So,
true, too.
so
Yeah.
it's kind of
That's true, too.
it's kind of a 50-50 thing. I mean,
It
if you are diving and you feel like something shouldn't be right, like my suit's getting too tight, what do I do? Well,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
say something, hey, my suit was tight, is that normal? Find out if it's normal, because
Yeah.
sometimes the instructor can't, you know, see everything,
That's
but
right.
yet, and the student needs to ask. And
And a couple of the
Yeah.
common things that might indicate sloth, a little bit of slothfulness in an instructor, is if they don't take enough time to properly weight you for your thermal protection,
right,
that's a red flag.
yep,
You should not be doing your first dive until your weighting is correct and you can hover in the water column.
yep, yep,
In my view, that's important. Second of all, if you get through open water and you don't have a pretty good mastery of your buoyancy control, that is an issue.
right,
Buoyancy, we should not have to go to a peak performance buoyancy course
right.
to have good buoyancy. That should be part of our open water course.
Yeah,
Because buoyancy and weighting is one of the things that gets most divers in trouble when they
Yes.
do have trouble.
Yep,
Being overweighted and not having a way to control, or they haven't mastered the techniques involved with buoyancy
and
control.
controlling.
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
those have to be done. If your dive instructor isn't spending the time to make that happen,
Mhm.
before you move on, you might want to think about, is this the instructor that I want to continue on with?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
buoyancy is a critical component, and
And
we
there's
need to
a lot
take
of
the
instructions
time
out there.
in order to get that the way it goes. Well, there are a lot of instructors. For
Yeah.
example, at Hardcore Divers, we have 5 PADI instructors.
Right, right.
We can put you with any of 5 PADI instructors. And so if you have personality differences, if you have a particular learning method
Yeah.
that's best for you, maybe that fits a different one of our dive instructors better than another one. Maybe having variety
Yeah,
in instructors
yeah, maybe.
is an important consideration, and maybe that's a sign of a good dive shop. Anyway, something to consider.
Yeah.
But do you have any more items that might indicate a good or maybe a dive instructor that needs more work?
You know, for one that I would not choose to dive with a dive instructor that has too many divers under the control.
Oh my
If
gosh.
If they have too many divers
That's a really
and not
important
enough dive masters to help,
Yeah.
that sometimes, and that you see that a lot with people that want to push through everybody.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Is getting a lot of them. Well, that dive instructor cannot focus
So
on all of you.
I'm an MSDT. You'd think that I could have this, that I'd consider myself to have this wonderful global awareness, and I could take the maximum amount of divers for a particular certification or specialty certification.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. I take no more than 3 divers.
Right.
Occasionally, I might fit a 4th if I have all adults,
Yeah.
and by adults I mean they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever.
Yeah, and you have a dive master.
But
in
even
that
though
thing.
the standard allows me to supervise 8 in the water by myself, there's no way.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, there's no way. Maybe there's some instructors out there that say that they can control that many divers. I know that some classes are 8 students big, but in my experience, our open water class was 8 students.
yeah,
But we had 2 instructors and a dive master.
And-
Dive
yeah, I was
master
gonna
Rick
say, yep.
and Alan and Sonia were
Yep.
both in the water. That's an average of 4 per
Yeah.
instructor.
and you have,
And-
those dive masters were right, I mean, they were
Oh,
right
Rick was
there.
awesome.
You know, and
Yeah.
yeah, they were right there, and so
Yeah,
if,
yeah.
if Sonia was working with one of you guys or 2 of you guys,
Yeah.
you know, then the dive masters were on top of it with the other, people.
Yeah, and
So-
that's something that I thought Mitch did really well too, was there was always a lot of us dive masters
Yes.
hanging around.
Yep,
And
yep,
so we could help out with stuff like that.
We could.
Another red flag with an instructor, in my opinion, is if he's teaching 2 different classes at the same time,
right.
in the
Yes.
same dive.
Yes,
big red flag in my view.
Huge, yeah.
Because I don't see how you can adequately focus on and teach an open water student and an advanced open water student in the water at the same time. They got to do different things.
Right.
And doing different things, you can't focus
Right.
on the one thing.
That's true.
And that's where we start getting into, we're trying to maximize the amount of dollars that we make for every hour in the water.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's a red flag.
Because it becomes about the money and not
Yeah.
about making lifelong divers. And our
Right,
goal
right.
should be to create lifelong divers.
Yes. Now, there might be some specialty courses that go together. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but especially those courses need to be taught. And there's other courses that I don't think should be mixed. I think when you start branching into courses that require a lot of task loading and gear
Yes.
loading, maybe some of the tech diving stuff, or maybe side mount diving or something like that,
Right.
that probably should be mixed with something else and creating a lot more
Yeah.
stress and a lot more task loading.
Right.
So in my mind, those are some things that can indicate either a really good instructor or an instructor that probably needs a little more work.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
to focus a little more on the basics and a little more on standards.
Right.
I encourage you to go, if you decide to dive, find a good dive shop.
Yeah.
Take some time to identify the shop you want to dive with.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to identify the instructor that you want to dive with, because both of them have your life in their hands. We'll see you next time on Training Talk. Make sure you don't miss our next episode.